Good morning. Welcome to your second math lesson in chapter 3 of the math book. If you haven't already, take out your math notebook and turn to the next available page. Then get a pencil ready so you can take notes. At the top of the page, write two-digit dividends. And let's start off today's lesson with some notes. First, what is a dividend? Okay, a dividend is a number that is being divided. What is a divisor? That's our next word. Divisor is a number that divides into a dividend. Okay, two more words. Next one is quotient. Quotient is the answer to a division problem. It can also be called the result of a division problem. Okay, and then lastly, remainder. And that's a number that is left over when one whole number is divided by another. So let's look at an example that takes all these four vocab words into account. Let's say we have 27 divided by 9 equals 3. Okay, so which one of these numbers is the dividend? It's the 27. And if we were going to write it as a long division problem, the 27 would go inside. The dividend goes inside the house. Okay? And the 9 is the number dividing into the dividend. So that's the divisor. And the answer is 3. That's the quotient. The quotient is the answer to a division problem. Now, there's no remainder in this problem. But let's say we had 28 divided by 9. See, 29 isn't a factor of 28, so it can't fit into 28 an even number of times. So you'll have a remainder when you divide. In other words, when you separate 28 into 9 equal groups, like let's say there were 28 students and the teacher wanted them in 9 groups, he wouldn't be able to get the same amount of kids in each group. There would be some left over after he separated the kids into groups. Let me show you a picture of what that means. Let's draw a dot for each kid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. And he's separating the students into groups of 9, right? So here's a group of 9. See, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here's a group of 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And here's a group of 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And look at that. There's one, oops, dang it, you can't see. There's one student left over. See, we have 1, 2, 3 groups of 9 and 1 left over. So that's the remainder. So the answer to 28 divided by 9 is 3 with a remainder of 1. Because if you had 28 students and the teacher separated them into groups of 9, there would be 3 students in each group, but there would be 1 student who wouldn't fit into the group. So the teacher would probably make one of the groups have 10 people in it instead of 9, or 4 people in it instead of 3. Okay, so that is an example of all of these vocabulary words. Dividend, that's the 27 if you're dividing 27 by 9. Divisor, that's the 9 if you're dividing 27 by 9. The quotient is the answer, 3. And if you have a problem with a remainder like this, the remainder is the number that's left over. See, like right here, there's 1 student left over. That's what the remainder is. Okay, now let's go into now the steps to doing long division. So long division steps. Now, I like to remember the long division steps using an acronym. And an acronym is where you start off each letter with something to help you remember it. So, dirty monkeys smell crazy bad. Dirty monkeys smell crazy bad. Dirty, that is the D in dirty, that stands for divide. The M in monkeys stands for multiply. The S in smell stands for subtract. The C in crazy stands for compare. I'm just going to write the word compare. And the B in bad stands for bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, compare, bring down. And let's write those as actual words over here. Divide, multiply, subtract, compare, bring down. Now, after you get to bring down, you go back up to the top and you cycle through these steps as many times as you need to until there's nothing left to bring down. And then at the end, this is not one of the steps you cycle through, but at the end, once you can't go through the steps anymore, you write your remainder. You write your remainder if necessary. So I'm going to add an R right here. Dirty monkeys smell crazy bad, and then an R for remainder. But that's not one of the steps that you cycle through. Once you can't cycle through anymore, that's the very last step. Let me show you what all this looks like in an example problem. Let's say we have 75. Make sure you're writing everything Mr. Dauber's writing. Let's say we have 75 divided by 5. We follow these steps. The first step, and remember, if you ever can't remember these steps, just remember the acronym, dirty monkeys smell crazy bad. Okay, the first step is divide. What do we divide? We divide the divisor into the smallest part of the dividend that we can fit it in. We can fit the 5 into 7, so we put it there. 5 can fit into 7 one time. And how do we know 5 can fit into 7 one time? Because 2 5s would be 10, so it can't fit in twice. The next step is multiply. And what do we multiply? The part of the quotient we just wrote times the dividend. Times the divisor. 1 times 5 is 5. Now we subtract. What do we subtract? The number we just wrote, we subtract it from the part of the dividend that it's directly under. 7 minus 5 is 2. The next step is compare. What are we comparing? We have to make sure that this number we just wrote is smaller than the divisor. This number always has to be smaller than this number. If it's bigger, it means you could have fit this into here at least one more time. So it means this number is too small. Okay, so 2 is smaller than 5. So now we move on to the next step, which is bring down. What do we bring down? We just move over to the right. Whatever is right here, we bring it down next to the difference in the subtraction problem we just did. Now, after we bring down, we go back up to divide. And we divide the divisor into this new number we just made by subtracting and bringing down. 5 can fit into 25 5 times because 5 times 5 is 25. Now we go back to multiply. See how we're just cycling back through these steps now? 5, we write the part of the quotient we just wrote times the divisor. We multiply the part of the quotient we just wrote times the divisor. 5 times 5 is 25. Now we subtract. 25 minus 25 is 0. And there's nothing left to bring down. So we compare. 0 is smaller than 5. There's nothing left to bring down. So we're done. There's no remainder to write. We don't write remainder 0. If it's a 0 at the end, you don't write remainder 0. You're just done. The answer is 15. So if you had 75 people and somebody wanted to split them up into groups of 5, there would be 15 people in each group. 75 is the dividend, 5 is the divisor, and 15 is the quotient. Let's do another example together. I have to turn my paper over. You might not have to turn your paper over. Since I turned my paper over, let's go back over the steps again. Dirty, monkeys, smell, crazy, bad. The D stands for divide. The M stands for multiply. The S stands for subtract. The C stands for compare. Just put a C there. The B stands for bring down. Okay. And then you cycle through these steps as many times as you can. And then at the end, if there's a remainder, you write your remainder. Let's do another example problem. Let's say we have 57 divided by 4. Now, if I was going to write this problem long ways, it would look like this. 57 divided by 4. Notice that whatever number is inside the house, that one comes first if you're writing the problem out long ways. It's the dividend divided by the divisor. Dividend divided by the divisor. Okay, our first step is divide. 4 can fit into 5 one time, because 4 times 2 would be 8, and that's too big. Then we multiply. 1 times 4 is 4. Now we subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. Now we compare. 1 is smaller than 4. Remember, this number always has to be smaller than this number. Now we bring down. Now we go back to divide, and we divide this number into this number. 4 can fit into 17. Here's where your times tables come in handy. You think, what times 4 gets you closest to 17 without going over? Well, you think 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 5 is 20. That's too big, so I go back to 4 times 4. So 4 can fit into 17 4 times. Okay, now I multiply. The part of the quotient I just wrote times the divisor. 4 times 4 is 16. Now I subtract. 17 minus 16 is 1. Now I compare. Is 1 smaller than 4? Yes. There's nothing left to bring down, so I'm done. I can't cycle through anymore. And the last step is write your remainder. This time there is a remainder, so it's 14, remainder 1. Okay, let's do another example together. Let's say we had 33 divided by 2. Now, this is your guided practice, so make sure you're doing all these problems with me. Everything I put on this paper, you should be writing inside your math notebook, okay? First step is divide. 2 can fit into 3 one time. My next step is multiply. 1 times 2 is 2. My next step is subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. Next, I compare. Is 1 smaller than 2? Yes. So now I bring down. Now, I go back up to divide. I cycle through these steps as many times as I can. 2 can fit into 13. Now, here's where your times table charts come in handy. What times 2 gets us closest to 13 without going over? So we think 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. We're still pretty far away from 13. 2 times 4 is 12. I'm sorry. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 6 is 12. So then 2 times 7 is 14. That's too big. It's bigger than 13. So I go back to 2 times 6. So 2 can fit into 13 6 times. Okay. I just divided. So now I multiply the part of the quotient I just wrote times the divisor. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay. Now I subtract. 13 minus 12 is 1. Now I compare. Is 1 smaller than 2? Yes. And the next step is bring down, but there's nothing left to bring down. So I'm finished with the problem, except that I have this last step, which is write your remainder. And there is a remainder here. So the answer is 16, remainder 1. Let's do one more problem together in the guided practice. Let's say I have 74 divided by 6. Okay, my first step is divide. 6 can fit into 7 one time. Now I multiply. 1 times 6 is 6. Now I subtract. 7 minus 6 is 1. Now I compare. Is 1 smaller than 6? Yes. Now I bring down the 4 next to the 1. And again, here's where your times tables come in handy. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18, which is too big. So I go back to 6 times 2. So 6 can fit into 14 2 times. Now I just divided. So now I multiply. 2 times 6 is 12. 14 minus 12 is 2. And that's my remainder because there's nothing left to bring down. 12, remainder 2. Okay, that's your guided practice for the day. For your independent practice, I want you to solve these two problems. I want you to do 28 divided by 2, and I want you to do 85 divided by 7. Go ahead and independently do those problems now, and then click on the next video to see if you got them correct. All right? I will see you guys next time.